Welcome to the Cauldron of Curiosities. Today I am staying in a place called the Lizard, which is the most southerly point of the United Kingdom, and it's also where my grandmother lived, and I do have several relatives living here. There is a pub, which is the most southerly pub, and it's called the Witch's Bull. And my great-grandfather lived and died there. But what am I going to talk to you about today? I'm going to talk to you about the lizard Serpentine. Now, Serpentine is a rock that you will find sold in the shops, and many local artists and craftsmen know how to turn serpentine. You can see the serpentine evident in the ground as you walk over the Lizard Village, into Kynance Cove, and down onto the Lizard Point. There's green, red, it's everywhere. Climbing over a stile, you have a serpentine rock forming, coming out of a hedge as you climb over. So I wondered, how was serpentine formed? Apparently, millions of years ago, when peridotite, a rock rich in iron and magnesium, was thrust upward from beneath the Earth's crust, it was transformed into serpentine through the geological process of serpentinization, a form of metamorphism involving heated seawater. This happened far below the Reich Ocean, in the area that is now Cornwall. Serpentine is a rock composed of serpentine group minerals, but it's often referred to just as serpentine. And what I discovered is that different areas of the lizard around the different coves seem to have different colours. And it says the local stone is one of 3 mineral forms found in different locations around the world and is known as lizardite. There's a few legends if you're interested. One is about a sailor who was washed up at the lizard and noticed its colours and patterns gleaming in a rubstone that had been polished by cattle. Now, it's more likely, they say, that the local people became aware of these qualities by polishing the stones for daily use on stiles, cobbles and flagstones. And as I said to you, I've certainly seen them on stiles. The lizard became very popular when Prince Albert decided he quite liked the idea of using serpentine, and he collected some artefacts during a trip ashore when he was on a cruise around the Cornish coast, and he was impressed by the quality of the stone and the discovery of what he termed an English marble, of which he had been previously unaware. So these became really popular because of the royal interest, and there were a number of small workshops which were well established in the areas surrounding Kynance Cove. Actually, there's some workshops which are in the lizard village itself, which they don't seem to mention. Currently there are a couple of shops still selling, and there's an old chap who does it as a hobby, and his name's Billy. And Billy wants to sell all of his serpentine stock, he said, in the next year. And I said to him, why is that? And he said, well, I'm 80, I'm getting on a bit. And he said, and I've also got cancer. So he wants to sell all of the stuff that he's made. And he obviously enjoys turning the serpentine. He said to me, because I said to him, did he ever try wood turning? And he said wood dust was too light, but the dust from serpentine is quite heavy. and so it's easy because it fell onto the workshop floor and you could sweep it out. So it didn't cause a problem for the lungs. Now, one of the reasons they call it Serpentine lizardine is because of the way that it appears. It may have stripes or scales within the rock. I have seen some serpentine today, which is quite black with like orange streaks in it. Another piece I found was almost like a collection of flowers because of the way the different colours, the lighter colours, came through the green rock. Serpentine has been made into small jewels that have been put into jewellery, and I've also seen the popular one down here because of the lighthouse at the Lizard Point is some of the Turners. They make a lighthouse out of a serpentine, and that's quite heavy. You can imagine, can't you? I find it quite interesting that some of the research behind where the serpentine can be found mentions Kynance Cove. It's in all the coves, but maybe the National Trust doesn't want people to be aware of the other points, because one of the places where people used to quarry serpentine, and it's still there, is just off the coast path by Church Cove, which is just where my grandmother's buried. And there's a really steep path way down, and it's where one of the old lifeboat stations were. And it is the smaller lifeboat station, because there's another one at the Lizard Point, an old lifeboat ramp, and the housing is still there next to the cove, which is off to the right of where the lighthouse sits, if you should ever go and visit there. I found it's one of the things that I was reading about said that if you walk down the steps into Kynance Cove, you'll notice the serpentine. It's like quite large boulders of dark green and red rocks. And talking to my uncle, he said that when it's been exposed to the sunlight and the sea, the serpentine that you can see when you're walking around isn't so good for turning. So they apparently, when they dig up the serpentine, they cover it up to stop the sunlight getting to it and hardening it. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? That it changes its consistency when exposed to light. Various reference says that serpentine is rare, and that these rare lizard complex rocks have been intriguing geologists for hundreds of years because of the reference that they make to this ancient ocean. So if you've got any thoughts, or have you got some jewellery, or do you have any animals that are made, or do you have a lighthouse that's made out of serpentine? I'd be interested to know. This is one of my favourite places for walking in Cornwall, and Bumble and I both like to come down here and often find little pieces of serpentine washed up on the cove by the point. Thank you for listening today, and I look forward to catching up with you on another occasion. Have a marvellous magical day. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Cauldron of Curiosities. If you enjoyed this dip into folklore, don't forget to follow the podcast, share it with a friend, and keep your lantern handy for the next curious tale.